Hello, bonjour, namaste. Welcome to the Canada and India show, where we meet the people that make up the vibrant Canada-India relationship. Every week, we interview leaders in their fields to dive into who they are and what drives them. From the arts to trade to human rights, we will discover together how rich and diverse this relationship really is.
Hi, I'm Annie Dubé, Canada's Consul General in Mumbai, India, and you are listening to the Canada in India show. Thank you for joining us. Today, I'm very excited to talk with Sir Terry Matthews. He is the founder and chairman of Wesley Clover, a Canadian private global investment management firm and holding company. Since 1972, Terry has founded or funded more than 150 companies. He was in Pune recently to inaugurate the building where his Alacrity fund will be located. And we took the time to discuss his several trips to India, his love affair with high-tech, and the project he's launching to support the next generation of Indian high-tech entrepreneurs, Alacrity. You've been to India several times, you mentioned, so you want to tell me a bit about why you came to India the first time?
Always business, pretty much. And the first trip, I think, was end of 72, 73 to Mumbai. At the time, there was some companies that were looking for integrated circuits that were made in Ottawa by a company called Microsystems International. And I was in charge of applications engineering, which is good because integrated circuits need to be explained to the users, the designers. And that took me to many places for the first time, and certainly all over North America. Now, by that time, I was very familiar in any event with Europe from the previous work I did out of the UK in the world of electronics.
You have founded or funded more than 100 high-tech companies.
That's right.
And I understand that the focus of your visit to India is also to support high-tech companies.
That's correct.
And we're in Pune having you here, and I'm very excited to have this discussion. And we're here for a specific purpose. Alacrity India is inaugurating its facilities. You want to talk a bit about your Alacrity India project?
Sure, but you have to keep it in context with the global rationale.
Right.
You know, Alacrity started in Canada, actually in Victoria, BC. It's been very successful. It's been running there for about 7 years. Then with the experience, just within a year, we started up near Cardiff in the UK, west of London. And then the next stage was in Istanbul in Turkey. Then in the next stage in Lille in France, in northern France. And now India and Mexico City. And the rationale behind the Alacrity program, which is a very old English word, means move quick, move fast. So the way it works is I'm a big believer in being global, not just in one country. And you have to understand every country has different cultures, different languages. A good example in Europe is there's 40 basic languages, and that's only the basic ones. So what do you do to try and do business globally? You have to understand the culture, and every government would be delighted to see their young people come out of university and get good jobs. So in this particular case, if you look at the Alacrity program, there are certain attributes that are very attractive to governments. So in-country universities, in-country graduates used to create in-country companies that are in the tech sector, which is a high-growth area globally, with in-country investors that are almost 100% successful business people, and in-country government support. So a good example is in France. It's a 12 million euro fund, which is very small. This is a micro fund.
Okay.
I typically put in 10 to 20% of the fund. And in every case, the government typically takes about a 50% stake. And then in every country, there will be programs to help the young people do well in the tech sector. Sometimes it's help to pay the salaries of the young people. Sometimes there's R&D programs that you can take advantage of. But remember, we are talking about in-country tech companies with in-country local people and in-country investors. So this is a very powerful program.
A global approach, but with local solutions.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Now, so far it's worked very well. As an example, the Alacrity program in Canada has created some great startup companies, like startup companies where the valuation is shot up.
Wow.
A similar thing in Istanbul as an example. So here we are in India. I invest in every case at least 10%. So this program would be about a $10 million program. And I put in $1 million over 5 years. And I look for people to partner with me and do that. Typically, they're business people. Now, if you look at it from another perspective, you should be so lucky in life that you're part of a startup and the people that have skin in the game are successful business people.
Indeed.
They often become the first buyers of the technology developed.
So you've created this ecosystem, Alacrity, so that high-tech entrepreneurs have all the chances of success around. You've been investing around the world to make sure that the entrepreneurs can grow and be successful around the world. What made you come to India specifically, and how did you look at the environment to select Pune?
Well, first of all, remember, I am global. Mm-hmm. An industrialist that works on a global scale. If you go back in time to the very first company that I started, it grew very rapidly on the basis of listening to client requirements. Mm-hmm. Filling the client requirements means they're highly likely to buy because that's what they said they wanted. And the second thing is creating an environment where the people working have ownership, much more powerful than the scheme of you work, you get paid. Somebody offers more money, you're gone. Mm-hmm. If you have ownership, the chemistry is totally different, and you end up with much more determination to succeed by the people on the team. It's very important to remember that. And that's sort of a guideline to pretty much every company I've started, which is now well in excess of 100. And out of that, it's about 150 actually. Wow. No bankruptcies, which is pretty remarkable in its own right, but always a global orientation, always an orientation of sharing the results, the rewards, and listening to clients. This is not about client pushing because you say, I have a great idea. This is about client pull, much more powerful. So these are very basic elements of the way it works. In this particular case, the Alacrity program is global. It's almost like having a global family. Now you say, why India? Okay, well, let's go down that track. Start with the population. India is bigger than Europe in total and North America in total, Mexico, Canada, US, every country in Europe. You put the two together, and if you extract that number from India, it would still be the second biggest country in the world. So first of all, scale. The second thing about it, and there's about 3 or 4 points here. The second thing about it is that everyone is now networked. So that means mobile networks in particular are nationwide at very low cost. Everybody's networked. That also has a dramatic impact. Not 10 years ago, probably not even 5 years ago, but it's the case now.
The growth is quite amazing, you're right.
Oh, growth of connected people. Then another item is people coming out of universities are very well trained, in particular in the area of software development. This is many decades old. I mean, on a personal level, I've taken advantage of people that come out of universities to develop stuff for decades. And it's always been good. So the experience for me in working with people in India has been good, in particular in the area of software development. India's always been good to me personally from the perspective of a marketplace selling products. So you put these things together, size, that's scale, timeliness with everyone connected, qualifications of the people coming out of university, and then my formulas, the formula of Alacrity, the formula of accelerating companies, the fact that all of Asia is rapidly growing in an unprecedented way. And India is one of the largest countries in the world, rammed smack in the middle of Asia. I'd say that's a pretty good set of points to say maybe timing's right.
Indeed. And so you're here in Pune for a specific reason, launching integrating the Alacrity Fund. Mm-hmm. And why Pune? There's so many places in India. And as you mentioned, the scale is such that you could end up in a lot of different cities and you would probably do really well. So what made you select Pune?
Well, a few good reasons. One, we've had an operation here for a long, long time. Taraspan has been operating here with engineering resources in Taraspan for a long time, as well as in New Delhi, as well as in Bangalore, as well as in Mumbai. Then there's another factor. Is this really a separate city from Mumbai, or is it just on the edges? I mean, how long does it take? Not long.
3.5 hours drive,
one of
indeed.
the biggest cities in the world is very close by. It's also the financial capital. The growth, I mean, as far as I can tell, just the state of Maharashtra, I'm saying just, there's over 100 million people just in this one state. High output from universities of grads that are into software. And on top of that, I've had a lot of experience here. So the elements are right to expect to see growth and success. And what products would we expect to come out of this? Mainly software. And software has 90% plus gross profits. So the likelihood of getting exports, in particular in Asia, but not just in Asia, the likelihood goes up very, very high with very high margin. In particular, if you got high volume, and it starts with the domestic market, which is one of the biggest in the world.
So you are a very successful entrepreneur, as we can see, and you've been coming to India a lot. The progression or the development of the economy, the society has been tremendous. And I was here 12 years ago, and I just came back, and I see tremendous change, and I find that quite amazing. What do you think has been the biggest change for India, and that will bring it to the next level?
Well, I mean, part of it is like barriers taken down. Another part is really because of the expertise of the people. You'll find, as an example, I think roughly 50% of the so-called unicorns in Silicon Valley are actually driven by people out of India. Like, does that surprise me? Frankly, no. Because you're dealing with people that are well qualified, work hard, no industry, part from a very large population, taking advantage, I might say, for R&D being done here in India. So this is not too complicated to understand. There's almost the statistics tell you that this is good.
Indeed. And so from a Canadian perspective, what would be your best advice for Canadian companies who are looking at expanding in Asia overall, but maybe specifically to India?
Well, if you want to run a company and be global, which I would recommend, I mean, the Canadian market, frankly, is not very big.
It's true.
So if you wish to be global, you can't leave India out. You just can't leave it out. So it has to be targeted.
In terms of the main factor of success for any company entering the Indian market, what would it be if there's one thing that someone has to have? Is it patience? Is it grit? What would it be?
Well, it's those things, and you must recognize every nation has cultures. I mean, just some incredibly simple things. You've traveled overnight and you're now in Saudi Arabia or UAE and you're a little tired, but you're now in a meeting. And you cross your legs and the bottom of your shoes are visible. The likelihood of getting business is zero because you just insulted the very people you'd like to do business with. Knowing the local cultures is incredibly important. India is probably a little easier than many. First of all, pretty much everybody speaks English as well as the local language. Got it. That's very useful to many people in Canada. The second thing I think is that there tends to be within India an openness. Canada has a good flag here. We mustn't forget that either. Canada has a very good flag in most places. Europe is more complicated. 40 basic languages. As I often explain to people, you speak English, that's good. So when you go to Scotland, what does "och" mean? I speak perfect English, I would say. I still don't know what "och" means in Scotland.
I'm not sure either.
So the truth is there are 40 basic languages in Europe, but that didn't speak for the regional variations. Difficult to do business.
It's true. I agree with you that India is a market that we cannot ignore. It's a market that is growing rapidly. The sophistication of the market is quite amazing. They are doing business all around the world and they're growing fast. In terms of Canadian companies entering, there's roughly 1,000 companies from Canada doing business with India right now.
Yeah.
We want to scale. Obviously, the bilateral relationship is roughly $8 billion bilateral trade.
It's not enough.
And so from your perspective, what would be the key sectors or industries to focus our energy on from Canada to here?
Well, first of all, start with everybody networked. Canada's famous for software too. Canada's famous for having a border with one of the biggest markets in the world. So if I talk about any tech company in Canada, the likelihood is the bulk of business is south of the border in the US. It should also be targeting India. The growth, GDP growth just in Maharashtra for quite a few recent years has been somewhere north of 12%. That's a big number.
It is. It is. And from going back to your time here in Pune, what is the timeline for you to make sure that you invest in the right startups with your fund in Alacrity? I'm jumping a bit over the place here,
but it's already started, really.
Okay.
We take selected people out of university. They come to Canada for a boot camp.
Okay.
The boot camp means that for about a month, maybe 6 weeks, they meet all kinds of C-level people that I'm already involved with. Now, it's very interesting. Young people out of university think they know everything, but they don't. 100% of the time at the end of the boot camp, we have a little review. And 100% of the time they say, I never realized what's in a startup and what it is to create a company. Huge learning exercise by having this ability to talk to people who have already done it. That's a big boost and a big contribution towards creating success.
That's amazing. From Indian perspective, they love Canada. They love to come to get a good education. They love to settle in Canada. There's a 1.3 or 1.4 million Canadians of Indian origin, including my own husband. And I like to see that these people-to-people ties are supporting the relationship. And so how can we bring more of all the best that both countries have to offer? And yes, the high-tech angle is definitely important, but more in general, people-to-people ties, where do you see the gap that we may need to cover?
I think just raise the profile. It's not really complicated in life. If you don't speak, it's unlikely that you heard. If it isn't written, it's unlikely that it's going to be read. So just keep the profile raised up. In particular about the wins, the successful things. We could be doing more, I think.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I think we've been very lucky to have you on the show while you were here in India. Thank you so much. All the best with your venture with Alacrity here in Pune. That's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Don't miss next week's episode where we discuss with Sanjay Deshpande, who heads Clearford operations in India. Clearford is a water management company headquartered in Canada, Ontario. Sanjay and I talked about toilets, Indiana Jones, and the potential of the Indian market.
We are thrilled that you shared this time with us today. We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on our social media channels. On Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, we are at Canada in India. You can listen to all our episodes wherever you get your podcasts, so please do subscribe. Thank you. Merci. Dhanyavad.